A child can spend 18 years in school, learn mathematics, science, history, and even prepare for a career. Then become an adult without knowing what to do with their first paycheck. And the reason may begin much earlier than you think. Imagine two children. Both are 5 years old. Both grow up with roughly the same opportunities. Both go to school and prepare for adulthood. But there is one difference. When the first child wants money, they are simply given money. The second child is slowly taught how money works. And that difference begins with something as small as a toy. At 5, one child cries for 2 toys and eventually gets both. The other is given enough money for only one and has to choose. At 8, one asks for money. The other begins to understand why people earn it. At 11, one spends almost everything they receive. The other learns how to keep part of it. At 14, one only uses a phone or computer for entertainment. The other begins building a skill someone may one day pay for. At 16, one sees money as something to spend. The other begins learning how money can grow through ownership and long-term investing. And at 18, neither child is guaranteed to be rich, but one of them is meeting money almost for the first time. The other has already spent 13 years learning how to make financial decisions. This is not about turning your child into a millionaire before adulthood. It is about teaching them something many adults wish they had learned years earlier. Because the way your child spends, saves, waits, and thinks about money does not suddenly appear when they receive their first paycheck. Those habits are being built now. Sometimes in a supermarket, sometimes through a small allowance, and sometimes in the few seconds after your child points at something and says, "Can you buy this for me?" So whether your child is 5, 8, 11, 14, or even 17, there is a money lesson they are old enough to begin learning. And the first lesson starts with something as simple as one toy. A lesson many parents accidentally teach completely backwards. Here is exactly what you should be teaching them about money before they turn 18. Age 5 to 7. Teach them to choose. At 5 years old, your child does not need to understand stocks, interest rates, or how a bank works. They need to understand one simple truth. Money is limited, and one of the easiest places to teach this is somewhere almost every parent has struggled with: a store. Imagine you walk into a store with your 6-year-old child. They see a toy car. "I want this." Then, 2 minutes later, they see a larger, more expensive toy. "I want this too." Now, many parents make one of two decisions. They either buy what the child wants to stop them from crying, or immediately say, "No, we don't have money for that." But there is another way to handle this. Before entering the store, give the child a small amount of money appropriate for your family. Then tell them, "This is your money for today. You can spend it or you can keep it. But when it is finished, I will not add more." Now walk into the store. The child sees the toy car. They can afford it. But then they see the larger toy. They cannot afford that one yet. And this is where the lesson begins. Do not immediately make the decision for them. Ask, "Which one do you want more?" The child may choose the toy car. Let them, even if you think it is a bad decision. Later, when they see the larger toy again and realize their money is gone, they experience the consequence of a financial choice, while the consequence is still small. They did not miss rent. They did not enter debt. They did not lose their home. They simply cannot buy the toy they now want more. And yes, they may cry. They may look at you and say, "Please, just give me more money." This is the moment many parents accidentally erase the entire lesson. Instead of adding more money, calmly say, "I know you want it. You can choose a toy you can afford today, or keep your money for the one you want more." Then stop. Do not give a 10-minute speech about saving. Let the choice do the teaching. Now imagine the child makes a different decision. They put the smaller toy back. They keep the money. A week later, they receive another small amount and keep part of that too. Slowly, they move closer to the larger toy. For the first time, the child is not just hearing the words, "Be patient." They are experiencing what patience can produce. They are learning that saying no to something today can move them closer to something they value more tomorrow. And this is why simply telling a child, "We can't afford it," is not always enough. The child hears your decision, but they do not practice making one. Financial judgment is built through small choices made again and again, so bring that choice home. You do not need a complicated children's banking system. You can start with 3 simple containers. One for money the child wants to use now, one for money they want to keep for later, and one for money they may choose to use for someone else. When the child receives birthday money, a small allowance, or money from a relative, sit beside them. But do not automatically divide it yourself. Ask, how much do you want to use now? How much do you want to keep for later? And is there any amount you want to use to help someone else? At first, their decisions may make absolutely no sense to you. They may put almost everything in the spending container. Let the small mistake happen. Then, the next time they want something and the container is empty, remind them of the choice they made. Not with anger. Not with, I told you so. Just show them the connection. You chose to use that money last week. Your spending container is empty now. What would you like to do differently next time? That question is more powerful than simply saying, you are bad with money. Because at 5 to 7, you are not trying to raise a perfect investor. You are teaching the child that every coin has a choice attached to it. Use it now, keep it for later, or use it for someone else. And if you teach this correctly, by the time your child reaches 8 years old, they may already understand something many adults still struggle with. You cannot choose everything. But now another question begins to appear. If money is limited, where does money actually come from? And this is where the lesson must change. Because from age 8 to 10, your child is old enough to begin understanding that money does not simply come from mom, dad, or the ATM. Age 8 to 10. Teach them why people earn money. At 8 years old, your child already knows that money buys things, but they may still see the money itself as almost magical. A card touches a machine, food appears, an ATM gives out cash. So at this age, the next lesson is simple. Money does not just appear. Money moves when value is exchanged. But do not sit your 9-year-old at a table and give them a lecture about economics. Give them a problem. Imagine your child comes to you and says, "Can I have $10? Many parents will either say yes or no. But try something different. Ask, what do you need the $10 for? Maybe the child wants a new game, a toy, or something their friend has. Then say, okay, look around. Find a problem you can solve for me. Now, this is where you must be careful. Brushing their teeth is not a business. Making their own bed is not a business. Putting away the toys they threw across the floor is not a business. Those are basic responsibilities. If you pay a child for every normal responsibility, they may begin asking, how much will you pay me? Every time you ask them to help. Instead, look for work outside their normal responsibilities. Maybe the garage has boxes that need sorting. Maybe the garden needs extra work. Maybe the family car needs washing. Choose a real problem. Then ask the child, how much do you think I should pay you for solving this? Listen to their answer. They may say $50 for 10 minutes of work. Do not laugh. Ask, why 50? Now they have to explain their thinking. Then you can say, I would pay $10 because this will save me time and solve a problem for me. Do you want to do it? Suddenly, the child is learning something completely different from simply receiving money. A problem existed. They offered effort. The problem was solved. Money moved. Problem. Value. Money. But now imagine the child washes only half the car, throws the sponge down, and says, I'm finished. Where's my $10? This is another moment where parents can accidentally erase the lesson. Do not pay simply because the child tried for 10 minutes, and do not begin shouting. Walk back to the agreement. Say, we agreed that the job was washing the car. Is the car washed? Let the child look at it. If the answer is no, calmly say, then the job is not finished yet. You can finish what we agreed or stop, but I pay for the completed job we agreed on. This teaches the child that money is not automatically owed because they were busy. The result matters too. Once they understand this inside your home, you can help them notice small problems around people you already know and trust with your supervision. Maybe a relative needs help organizing books. Maybe a family friend wants a bicycle washed. But make one thing clear. Not every helpful act needs payment. Helping someone carry a bag or doing something kind does not always need to become a transaction. The lesson is simply to train the child's eyes to notice problems and understand why someone may willingly pay to have certain problems solved. Now imagine your child washes a relative's car and earns $10. When they receive the money, ask, "Why did they pay you?" The child may say, "Because I washed the car." Then ask, "Why didn't they wash it themselves?" Maybe the relative was busy. Maybe they were tired. Maybe they wanted to use that hour for something else. And there it is. Your child begins to understand that they were paid because they saved someone time, effort, or inconvenience. That is value. Hard work matters. But hours alone do not always determine value. And once a child understands that, they can begin asking a better question. How can I solve this problem better? Maybe next time they prepare everything before they start and finish the same job properly without wasting time looking for tools. You are not teaching your 9-year-old to build a corporation. You are teaching them to improve. But there is one mistake parents should avoid here. Do not turn every interest your child has into a business. If your daughter loves drawing, you do not need to immediately say, "You should sell these." If your son loves football, every game does not need to become a future income plan. A child should still be allowed to enjoy something without monetizing it. Instead, watch for the moments when your child wants money or asks how they can earn it. That is when the lesson becomes useful. Help them find a small problem. Agree on the result and the payment before the work begins. Let them complete the work. Let them receive the money. Then ask them why someone was willing to pay. Do this enough times, and by age 10, your child may stop seeing money as something adults simply control. They begin seeing the exchange behind it. Someone has a problem. Someone creates value. Money moves between them. But earning money creates a new danger. Because a child can learn how to earn $10 today and spend 11 tomorrow. So when your child reaches 11, the lesson must change again. It is no longer enough to know how money comes in. Now, they must learn how to stop all of it from going back out. Age 11 to 13. Teach them how to keep money. At 11 years old, your child may understand how money is earned. But earning money creates a new problem. I earned it, so I can spend it however I want. And yes, it is their money. The lesson is not to control it. The lesson is to help them see where their choices lead. Imagine your 12-year-old earns $30. A few days later, almost all of it is gone. Then they come to you and say, "I need more money." Do not say, "You waste everything." Ask, "Where did the $30 go?" They may shrug. "I don't know." And that answer is the lesson. Sit beside them and rebuild the last few days. Some money on snacks, $8 inside a game, a little more while out with friends. Then say, "None of these felt like a big purchase, but together they used almost all your money." Money does not always disappear in one dramatic purchase. Sometimes it leaks, a little here, a little there, until nothing is left. The next time they earn money, ask, "What do you want this money to do for you?" Maybe they want to go out with friends. Maybe they are saving for headphones. Maybe they want a small amount available for something unexpected. Now help them divide the money around those choices. Money for now, money for a goal, and money kept aside for later or something unexpected. The percentages do not need to be perfect. The habit matters more than the number. But there is one rule the parent must follow. Do not rescue the spending money. Imagine Friday arrives. Your child has already used their spending money, but their friends are going out. They ask, "Can you just give me $5? Say, "You can decide if tonight is important enough to take $5 from another goal. But I am not adding new money because your spending money finished." Now, the decision belongs to the child. If they take $5 from the headphone money, let the headphones move $5 further away. If they decide not to go, let them experience missing one small outing. The goal is not to make them suffer. It is to let small financial decisions have small consequences before adult decisions have adult consequences. At 11 to 13, your child must learn to look at money before it disappears and give it a purpose, because by 14, something changes. Your child is no longer limited to earning $10 washing a car or organizing boxes. They are old enough to begin developing something far more powerful, a skill. And that phone or computer you keep telling them to put down may become the first tool they ever use to earn money. Age 14 to 15. Teach them to build a skill. By 14, your child is old enough to build a skill that someone will one day value. Imagine your teenager spends hours watching videos on their phone. Instead of saying, "You're wasting your time," sit beside them and ask, "How many people do you think worked together to make this video?" Then explain, "Someone wrote it, someone edited it, someone designed the thumbnail, someone created the music. Every app they use exists because someone first built a valuable skill." Then ask, "Which one of those skills would you like to learn?" Maybe they choose editing, writing, design, or programming. Help them spend the next month learning that one skill. Their first attempt will not be great. That is normal. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. When they become good enough to help a relative or a family friend with that skill, they learn something school alone cannot teach. Skills create value, and value creates opportunity. Because by 16, earning money is no longer the biggest lesson. Learning what to do with it is. Age 16 to 17. Teach them ownership. Imagine your 16-year-old earns $100. Place the money on a table and ask, "What happens if this stays here for 10 years? Then ask, "What if part of it could own tiny pieces of hundreds of businesses instead?" Explain that this is how long-term investing can work. Some years will be good, others will not. That is normal. The lesson is not to chase quick money. It is to understand patience, diversification, and time. Ask them, "How much of this money are you willing to leave alone for your future?" Maybe they choose $10. Start there. At 16 and 17, you are not trying to raise a stock market expert. You are teaching your child that every dollar has a choice attached to it. Spend it today or let part of it work toward tomorrow. And with that lesson, they are finally ready for adulthood. Age 18. Give them a system. At 18, your child may receive their first real paycheck. Before they spend it, ask one question: what is your plan? A paycheck without a plan disappears quickly. A paycheck with a system builds a future. Teach them one simple habit. Every time money comes in, save some, invest some according to a long-term plan, and spend the rest wisely. Then remind them where it all began. Do you remember choosing between two toys when you were 5? That lesson was never about a toy. It was about learning to make good decisions. At 5, they learned to choose. At 8, they learned that money follows value. At 11, they learned to give money a purpose. At 14, they built a skill. At 16, they learned that money can grow through patience and ownership. Now, at 18, they simply put those lessons together. Becoming rich is never guaranteed, but by the time adulthood begins, they already know how to make financial decisions. You are not teaching them about money for the first time. You are simply no longer holding their hand.